With the Jets looking to move back from their number 3 overall pick, here are my top 5 teams that I think could be looking to trade up.
Jets, 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 Jets!
If you're new here, hit that subscribe button. I cover NFL news weekly with a little bit of a Jets twist. If you're a regular on the channel, welcome back. Glad you're here. Don't forget to leave a comment down below in terms of who your favorite draft prospect is for this season. You'll get entered to win the Jamal Adams poster. The Jets are currently shopping their number 3 overall pick, so who are the teams that are going to be looking to move up in this year's draft? There's 2 things that need to happen. First, you need to have a team that wants to move up, and secondly, you got to see if the compensation makes sense. If you haven't seen this chart before, this is the draft value chart. It was developed by Jimmy Johnson in the early 1990s, so there's a few things that are a little funky about it. It doesn't take into account the salary cap or the rookie pay scale that were put into place in 1994 and in 2011, respectively. This chart assigns value to each draft pick to determine whether a trade is fair or unfair when trying to figure out, teams moving up and moving down in the draft. Now, if we take a look at what the Jets traded the Colts last year, the Jets gave up about 2,800 points worth of draft picks. They gave up their first and 3 second-round picks. That's about a 600-point swing from what this chart says the 3rd overall pick is worth. One thing to take into account is that the rookie pay scale was not a thing when this chart was developed. Quarterbacks are paid so much money in today's NFL that if you have to go up and get one, it's going to cost you a ton of money. That quarterback is only going to be getting paid $8 million, which is about a $10 million swing for what starting quarterbacks are really paid in the NFL. So you are saving a ton of money on the salary cap by giving up draft picks to get that quarterback on the cheap for 4 years with a 5th-year option. Number 5 on this list is the New York Giants. 1 year after passing on Sam Darnold with the 2nd overall pick to take Saquon Barkley, the Giants find themselves needing a franchise quarterback with Eli Manning going into the last year of his contract. With the Cardinals possibly trading away Josh Rosen to select Kyler Murray with the 1st overall pick, the Giants could be in a panic to try and move up and get that quarterback. What would it take for the Giants to move up to get that? Well, right now they own the 6th pick. So if you value the Jets pick at 2,200 points, the Giants would have to give up the 6th pick, their 37th overall, which is their 2nd-round pick, and a 2020 third-rounder. That would put the value at about 2,218 points, so right around what you would need to get that done. Now, I like when I do these trades to do the bare minimum because you can always, the Jets are going to get 1 million first-round picks and, get some RG3 type deal. That's not realistic. Do it for the baseline, get anything over that is a bonus. If the Jets were to fall back to the 6th pick, it allows them to recoup that 2nd-round pick that they traded for Sam, as well as staying within the top 10. It allows them to take the top offensive lineman or one of the top offensive linemen at that 6th pick that they would have possibly taken at the 3rd pick. In terms of dropping back, this is something that the Jets could absolutely look to do. Now, in the history of the Jets and Giants, there's not too many trades between them. There hasn't been a trade between the 2 teams in over 30 years. But Mike Maccagnan has come out and said he is willing to go into talks with the Giants to move back. Overall, I don't think it's going to happen. I think if there were to be a move within that top echelon, I think the Giants would look to move up with the San Francisco 49ers to just leapfrog the Jets. At number 4, we have the Washington Redskins. They currently sit at 15, and Alex Smith is projected to miss the entirety of the 2019 campaign. They have him under contract and locked in for the next 2 years, so they can't really bring in an additional free agent quarterback, so they could be looking to move up. Dan Snyder, the owner of the Washington Redskins, has not been shy in the past. He traded up for RG3 going from number 6 up to number 2. He gave up 3 first-round picks and a second-round pick. Now, I don't think that's necessarily the haul you're always going to get because I think that draft was a little bit of the asterisk, the oddity, I guess. Now, for the Jets to fall back to the 15th pick, what would it take? Due to the value of the points, the Redskins would have to give up their 1st-rounder this year, their 2nd, their 3rd, and their 2020 first-round pick just to get the 2,280 points roughly needed to move up to that 3rd overall pick. Now, there's a few things to think about with this deal. Dwayne Haskins, the quarterback from Ohio State, did play his high school ball in Maryland, so he's relatively local in terms of the D.C. area. So maybe the local fan base wants Dwayne Haskins as their quarterback. The other thing to consider is that Gruden could be in hot water. Do you want to commit that many resources to a franchise quarterback with a coach that you may not want to keep after this year? Now, if the Redskins opt to tank, they could bottom out this season, get one of the top 5 picks in next year's draft in a draft class that could be considered a favorable quarterback draft class compared to this one. And then their head coaching search next year would be that much more attractive to potential candidates. At number 3, we have the Denver Broncos. The Broncos currently own the 10th overall pick. John Elway has already tried to fill the void that Peyton Manning left on that team with multiple solutions. They tried Trevor Siemian, Brock Osweiler, Paxton Lynch, and Case Keenum already. Now, they did bring in Joe Flacco. They did just trade for him. But if, as we saw last year, the Jets, the Bills, and the Cardinals all made moves for veteran quarterbacks prior to trading up in the draft to select their new signal caller. Now, what would it take for the Broncos to make that move? They'd likely have to give up their first-round pick this year, their third-round pick this year, and a first-round pick next year. The Broncos could supplement that with a trade of Von Miller, who is rumored to be on the trading block anyway. The Jets are in the market for a pass rusher, so if Von Miller were to be included into a trade like that, the compensation would obviously go down and it wouldn't cost the Broncos quite as much in terms of draft capital. At number 2, we have the Pittsburgh Steelers. This is probably the most interesting of the trades that could happen because the Steelers own the 20th overall pick, but they have a Hall of Fame wide receiver chip that they could use to help push along a trade. The Jets need playmakers, and Antonio Brown has been the best wide receiver this decade. He has averaged a ton of yards and a ton of catches and a ton of touchdowns over his time with the Steelers. With Big Ben contemplating retirement the past few years, the Steelers are going to need to start looking at quarterback options in the near future. So when you're looking to shop Antonio Brown, you might as well move him in an attempt to get a future signal caller. So what would it take? It would likely take the 20th overall pick, the 2nd overall pick, and Antonio Brown to make that deal happen. The Jets would be falling back 17 slots, which would roughly put Brown's trade value at about a mid-first round pick, which I think is relatively fair considering his age. Not that age should be a determining factor in it, because we are seeing wide receivers play a lot later. I mean, you have Larry Fitzgerald, who's going to be 36 this season. Terrell Owens played until he was like 37, and Marvin Harrison played until he was about 36. So receivers can last a long time, so there's no reason to think that Antonio Brown could not fulfill the rest of his contract for the Jets, which is a 3-year deal. It would cost us around $12 million a year. So cap flexibility-wise, he's relatively cheap for the production you're going to be getting out of him. And in the event that he acts up and causes some crazy locker room commotion, that cap hit is so low, the Jets are going to be able to move on from him, even if it's not for the same value that they would have gotten. With the 20th pick, the Jets could be looking at a pass rusher. This draft is real deep with pass rushers, so there's going to be guys that fall down into the bottom half of the first round. If the Jets are picking up a stud offensive weapon and a pass rusher and recouping a second-round pick, I'm not huge on Antonio Brown, but I think there is a very strong argument that that could be a very good move for the Jets moving forward. All right, and at number 1, the one that I think could really has a good chance of happening is the Cincinnati Bengals. They currently own the 11th overall pick, and they just saw last year their 2 division rivals in the Cleveland Browns and the Baltimore Ravens select their franchise quarterbacks in the first round. The Bengals brought in former quarterback coach of the Los Angeles Rams, Zach Taylor, to be their new head coach. So there's speculation that the Bengals will start their quarterback recruitment process this season. Andy Dalton has 2 years left on his contract, but he has no guaranteed money left. So at any point, they can decide to cut bait with him and move on to a rookie. Now, I think they would probably stick with Dalton this year and allow the rookie to sit and learn, but there's no cap ramifications for Andy Dalton if they decided to cut him at any point. Now, what would it take for this deal to get done? The Bengals would likely have to give up their first and second round picks as well as a first round pick next year. That would put the value at about 2,300 points. So the Jets would be making out a little bit in terms of the trade value chart and the third overall pick and what it's worth. Now, Maccagnan could opt to try and get more draft picks this year in lieu of a first-round pick next year, but I think falling out of the top 10, you want to try and secure a first-round pick for the following year. All right, so there you have it. Those are my top 5 teams that the Jets could potentially trade down with. Let me know down below if there's anyone that I forgot or if there is a compensation that you would like to see the Jets get for that third overall pick. As always, guys, go Jets.